G'day everyone and welcome to the Porg Diaries, a chronological review of canonical Star Wars content. My name is Jack.
My name's Simone.
And today we are going to touch on the High Republic Light of the Jedi.
I'm pretty excited, Jack. Our very first review.
Indeed.
Very exciting.
It'll be good fun. Hopefully this series takes off and we can see where we go. So, first off, we will do a non-spoilery overview, our thoughts on it, and whatnot. Give our ranking. Do we think it's good for beginners? That sort of stuff. Then, we will go into spoilers, where we will discuss, the actual in-depth sort of content of the book, and what we thought about it. I guess we should just begin at the start. So, first off, the High Republic is a multimedia initiative which is spanning 200 years before the very first film in Star Wars. So, way back during the Republic when it was at its zenith.
And in case for newbies, it's a book series. Potentially going to move into a movie at some point, but at this stage...
Well, book and comic.
Book and comic series.
So, so it is technically multimedia, but it is mainly, it's staying in literature currently.
And it's quite new, so it was released...
January 2021.
Yeah,
that's when they started.
To clarify, we're now, for people who are listening later, we were in April 2021, so
correct.
It's very new. At this stage, there's 3 books in the High Republic series.
That's correct. So we've got Light of the Jedi, Into the Dark, and A Test of Courage, as well as the 2 main comic lines, and there's some short stories that are released as well. Although, that being said, they are planning to release, I think they've got a manga in store. They're obviously continuing the comic lines. They've got some more books coming on, and the books, I should say, span across adult, young adult, junior reading, and they've also got some for, children... like kids' books.
Small kids. And interestingly, so this book is written by Charles Soule.
That's correct.
However, each of the books is a different author, which I found a really unique way to write a series of books.
Right, exactly. Yes, so they got I think it was 5 or 6 different authors in one room, and they said, right, you guys are going to handle this initiative. And these are like the best of the best sort of authors for Star Wars, or what they thought were the best of the best. And they tasked them and said, right along. And so currently we're in phase 1, but they said that they're going to do 3 phases spanning all the way to 2023, I think it was.
Yeah, right.
Spanning a long time. And throughout that we're going to get audiobooks, manga, comics, books, and who knows what else there could be installed. I believe there is a television series in the works, but that's, there's nothing really been said about that currently, so hard to sort of say. But, that being said, lots coming ahead for the High Republic. So
great, which I imagine for the, diehard Star Wars fans out there is pretty exciting to have a whole new series being released.
Right, absolutely.
And for newbies like me.
Yes, well, of course. So
today we're going to review the first book in the series, which is Light of the Jedi, and it really is more of an adult book.
Right.
As you said, the others are aimed at different age levels, but this one is quite complex, and it's an adult book.
Yeah, you've got like 40 chapters or something. The words are, decently small. There's what is there? There's a hell of a lot of pages. I'll just tell you that much. And there's a lot of story, so it's like split into 3 parts, and you've got huge things happening, lots of death, lots of destruction. Definitely an adult novel, but it's I guess I should give you a overview first, and then we can crack into it. So, The Light of the Jedi is written by Charles Soule. So as I said, it's split into 3 parts, and it is in the High Republic. So the Jedi are at their zenith, the Republic are at their zenith. It's the best that they've ever been. It is the height, hence the name.
Right.
So, So we kick off the book with all is well. It's all good, all is calm, and then boom, a huge, massive destruction happens. known as the Great Disaster. This is not spoilers. This is like
pretty much
chapter
the start
1.
of the book. Yeah, exactly. Get
So
straight into it.
Part 1 is literally titled The Great Disaster. Now, this huge, massive disaster happens, and then bada bing, bada boom, the Jedi are called in, as are the Republic, and they have to deal with the threat, they have to combat what's happening, and after the Great Disaster is over, we then get the fallout. So the rest of the book is all about how did the Jedi go about these things, how did the Republic go about these things, they develop these new characters for this era, all of these different things, and that's sort of the basic overview of it. It's definitely a more introductory novel, so it's introducing you to the era. That's its main purpose, and I would say it's very successful at that. This is definitely number one. Like, you can definitely feel, compared to all of the other novels and comics and all that, this is the first, right? This is introducing you. This is welcome to the High Republic, right? That's sort of the point of this story.
Yeah.
So I guess we can talk about...
So what do you think?
Yeah, so I enjoyed
you as a Star Wars fan, how did you, going into reading this book, what were your expectations?
Well, I can definitely feel that... I definitely think that I was thinking, all right, so we've got 200 years before The Phantom Menace, right? Which is the first Star Wars film. And I'm thinking, all right, so we've got to have, some form of conflict here, but... as we know from pre-established, just world building, I guess, is that there hasn't been any wars for centuries, and the Republic is largely at peace. So where do you go? How do you make a story out of that? Now, obviously, there are no wars, but that doesn't mean there can't be battles and there can't be conflict. And so that's where this sort of story leads off. Is that the team that made the High Republic, one of their main sort of things that drove them to write the story is one of them asked the question, what do the Jedi fear? And then they went with that. They went, boom, all right, let's write the story. And in this novel, you can definitely feel. You can definitely feel the Jedi are fearful of many things. Yes. Right? And even though they are these great, powerful beings, right? So...
different beings, though, to the Jedi that we know, from the movies.
Right, that's right.
So my thoughts were, I guess, I've not read any Star Wars novels to this day, so I went in, I guess, pretty clean slate. One thing for me, I did find it challenging. There are a lot of characters in this book, and it takes a while to get your head around all the characters. Without giving spoilers, not all of them stay all the way through the book, and it's hard to know who to keep up with. Charles Soule does a great job of describing those characters really well, but there's a lot going on. So to be honest, it took me a little bit to get into it, even though, as we mentioned before, the Great Disaster pretty much happens straight away, and you're hooked into that. But it did take me a while to get invested. Probably not until, I think, as you mentioned, it's 3 parts. So we get into the other parts of the book where it all started to piece together and then started to form into what I thought was a very good book. I would say that, whether you're a Star Wars fan or not, I think it's an enjoyable read. There was a little nod to, some of the... well, without giving it away, there are some references to perhaps characters that Star Wars fans would know. What I did like, what I thought was really interesting, was in this book was a really great representation of strong female characters, which is probably not as apparent in the Star Wars movies. Like, there was actually a lot of good, strong female characters in this book, which I thought was interesting.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that. But that's sort of a good point. That one of their things about going in was let's keep it diverse. So and you can feel that. So there's sort of like there's a balance. There's an equal balance between all characters, really. So there's all sorts of different ethnicities. There's all sorts of different... Well, just everybody in there.
Right.
You know, on top of there being aliens, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So like the Chancellor of the Republic, who is the leader, the president, if you will. She is, well, a woman.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
There you go. And she's a good leader. That's
one of the main Jedi characters is also a woman, and she's, you know, very unique, very strong. So I thought that was really good. The other thing I liked, which again, obviously it's Star Wars, but it's going into a brand new series, and so you don't really know what's going to happen to these characters and where they're going. Whereas I guess, you know, when you're going over older Star Wars material, it's great, but you also know the endings potentially. You know who's going to go to the dark side and whatnot. Whereas in this, you actually don't know where they're going. So that was exciting. I thought that was a good point.
Right. So there are characters that just appear. You go, oh, I like this character. Then goodbye.
That's right.
Right. And you sort of just don't expect it because this is a new era. And other than your obvious outliers, you know, your characters that have lived for hundreds of years, that we know still are kicking around when the films pick up. Other than those characters, which are very far and few between, and if they appear, they don't really get that much of a spotlight.
Right.
Other than those characters, every single person we meet is a brand new person. We've never seen them before. We have no experience of them, and of the literature that we know is going to be released, we have no idea if they're going to survive or not. So we've got titles for all of these novels, but you know the titles don't reveal. It's not like, oh, this character survives.
Right.
Right. So we have no idea. Anyone could die. Anyone could live.
Yeah.
Anyone could do anything.
Which is exciting when you're going into a new series.
Exactly.
And I equally enjoyed, I guess, the villains of the book as well. So whether we won't give too much away in this part, maybe if you stay with us for the spoiler part. But again, really strong, interesting characters and different villains to what we're used to. Exactly. Which is exciting, you know.
Because the villains that we've had in Star Wars thus far, while entertaining villains, they have all just been, well, basically most of them. I think there are a few that maybe dodge that outline, but even still they're allied with these people. It's always just been, a guy who's angry and he's got a red lightsaber.
Right, exactly.
That's just been the villains all throughout, which is fine because, you know, they're entertaining villains, right? And they work in the story. But
it's refreshing to have some new, a new flavour of villain, if you like.
A villain that isn't, that is new.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They're very entertaining. And they grip you as well. So they hold your attention.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what rating would you give this book?
Rating? Do you have any idea?
You go first. Be interesting actually to get your view, actually, if I can ask this, as a Star Wars fan, so putting that lens on, and then just as independently reading a new book series. Because actually you could look at it both ways, right?
So how do you mean?
Well, putting the lens on that you're a Star Wars fan and putting this into the Star Wars universe.
Right.
But then also just looking at the book independently, which is probably a little easier for someone like me, being a newer fan, as a series of books.
Well, would you say that this is good for newbies?
I would say this is good for newbies. So okay, well, to answer my question then, I would pick this book up and I would read it independently. If I've not seen anything to do with Star Wars, I could very easily read this book. I could get certainly immersed in the book, you know, captivated by the characters, the plot line and whatnot. Sure, I know now, having had some knowledge of Star Wars, there is some references in there, but if I didn't know that, it actually wouldn't affect my experience at all.
And the references in there are just like, it's just like poking you. It's just like,
yeah.
Did you catch this?
That's
did
right.
You catch this?
Wink. Yeah.
But you know, but it's like a wink and a nudge. Doesn't actually mean anything. It's just a cool little, hey, I got that. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's as simple as that. So within I was just going to say like I actually agree that they actually explain the core fundamentals of the Star Wars universe. So they literally set up and explain, okay, here are what the Jedi are. Here are what the blah, 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 blah. Right? They tell you everything that you need to know that Star Wars fans that Star Wars fans would already know.
Yes.
Or basically, like, if you've seen just a Star Wars film, they like this book tells you the stuff that you would have known from that film.
Right.
Like as in the core fundamentals of the universe and who these characters are, what their organizations are, where everybody stands. It tells you everything you need to know, while at the same time, for people who already know what they are, it's not egregious. So it isn't a thing of like, oh, we've already heard this. It's nothing like that.
No, that's right.
But that being said, if you've never even heard of what this Star Wars thing is, and you pick up this book, you tune in, and you give it a read,
it's an easy read.
It's fine.
And I do love that it also ends with, some great cliffhangers that really make you want to get into the next book. You're looking forward to that next book.
Yeah, it's a series.
From a Star Wars perspective, what I did like is, I guess when, looking at the movies that we've seen, we know that there are a lot of Jedi, but they do focus a lot on your main, heroes, right? So, you've got your select few that they tend to focus on, and they're pretty awesome and amazing. What I do like about this book is you do have a couple of obviously standout Jedi, but it also takes you through the mix of Jedi and shows that actually, although they're powerful, they also have some weaknesses, and there's a cross mix, and they also have different Jedi powers. Is that the word? Or strengths, which is also quite interesting and diverse, unlike the Jedi that we know.
Which is a definite point of this novel, which is showing you we are in a time where the Republic is at its best, the Jedi are at its best. They are at the height of their world, I guess you could say, of their organizations, of their peoples. And you definitely get a sense of that. They definitely embolden that idea of they are great.
Yes.
Right?
And it is good. It's actually refreshing to see the Republic was once, not as, I guess, immersed in politics and issues as they are in the movies that we know of.
Right. Yeah. And that being said, right, it's like this is almost like this is the time that they've referenced in the Star Wars universe, but we've never really seen.
Yes.
So there's always been numerous references to, there was, the Jedi are the defenders of peace and order and blah, 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 blah. But we never really saw that. We only really saw, the ending of that sort of
exactly.
time. But anyways, I would say that if I were to give it a ranking, coming back to that, I would say that I'd probably give it definitely a solid novel when it comes to just the entire sort of way that it was written, the way that it was pieced together. I'd have to give it maybe a 8, maybe.
Give it an 8?
Maybe an 8, maybe a 7.5. I did feel that the middle portion of the novel was a bit slow. It sort of definitely...
I agree.
It was a bit tad bogged down. So I would say maybe a 7.5. Yeah, 7.5. That would be my ranking.
Yeah, I was going to give it a similar ranking, actually, somewhere between 7.5 to 8. I agree with you that the middle part, it felt lengthy, and as I mentioned earlier, it is challenging with the amount of characters, and I understand that they're trying to set it up. This is the first book, but there is a lot to take in, especially when you do not know any of these characters at all. And Charles Soule does an amazing job of describing his characters,
characterizing them,
right? Exactly,
giving them personalities,
exactly, which is good. However, some of them, towards the end of the book are actually not as relevant, and you sort of wonder whether he needed to put as much detail into all of the characters. That said, overall, I think a good solid 7.5, a great read for anybody. I think definitely for a beginner. And or a fan of Star Wars.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I think if you've never, if you've never sort of seen any Star Wars or read any other Star Wars, it'd be a great way to start. To be honest,
I agree.
If I hadn't have seen any of the movies thus far, I probably would have started this way. It'd be nice, and also like the fact that it's only 200 years before, so it's not like 4,000 years before, which is way ahead. I think it's quite realistic, and I think it'll build up quite easily to where the movies are. I think it's a good enough length of time to go back to. Right.
And so, I completely agree. And so, do you think that we should cap it off there with our non-spoiler review?
Yeah, let's cap it off there. So those that are not wanting to hear any details, I guess switch off now. We'll give you a moment.
So if you've already read the book, continue on. Or if you're not going to read the book, or you're just happy to, you don't care about spoilers, listen on, and we will give a brief sort of spoilery overview, and then we will crack on to the
review,
our sort of in-depth spoilery review. But if not, if you're just wanting our sort of, brief non-spoilery stuff, that's where we're going to end it there. Yep. So, just one more warning. This is it. We are entering spoilery territory. And, okay, we have now begun the spoilery review.
Right.
So, first off, I will say that... all right, well, hold on. I'll give a bit of an overview first.
Sure.
So, we've got 3 parts, as described earlier. Part 1 is the Great Disaster. We have this huge sort of cataclysmic event, which we later learn is something that was, like the ship exploding through the system, hyperspace lanes and whatnot, and then kaboom, destruction everywhere, mayhem. Then it starts happening all across the galaxy. It turns out that this is not only one cataclysmic disaster, it's actually happening everywhere, and by the end of the book there's like 30-something different emergencies, which is what they call these disasters.
Millions of deaths.
Right. Hundreds of millions of deaths, which is pretty full on. Once again, a sign of that this is an adult novel. Then the Jedi and the Republic working together, they sort of tackle this problem. Disaster. So we've got Avar Chris and Elza Maan. Those two are working together. We've got who are the other teams? We've got a few sort of stories that run through the second part.
Yes.
We've got who else? We've got Buriaga, which is a Wookiee Padawan. Padawan being a student of a student Jedi sort of thing. It's like a Jedi in training. Who else do we have? We've got
Loden Greatstorm.
Right, Loden Greatstorm.
What a good name is Loden Greatstorm,
Pretty good. He's Padawan, Bel Zetifar.
Yes.
You got to love Star Wars names. They're sometimes pretty dumb, but often they're pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. I've got to also point in here that Avar Chris is by far one of my favourite characters. And again,
she's pretty awesome.
As I mentioned at the start of this podcast, having some strong females in this, she's definitely up there with one of them.
No, definitely.
And I love, if we can talk about the section where, at the beginning, where she orchestrates.
Well, would you just talk to me in a second, just so I can quickly do a quick overview?
Yeah, sure thing.
So I'm just trying to think. So there's those 3, and then there's another one going on, surely. Have I missed something? What were the stories going on? So there was... Oh, and the Nile, obviously. The Nile, of course. Yeah, right, that was the other story going on.
New villains.
Right.
With Markion Rowe.
He was, the top dog. Right, and then part 3, which was the sort of conclusion, where we had this huge... I think there was 2 massive battles that sort of spanned a couple of chapters as, you know, hundreds of thousands of people died, and we got, you know, Loden Greatstorm got captured by the Nile, and then we sort of had a bit of a conclusion where we ended with you know, a sort of tease for the next book.
Right, exactly.
Bit of a
cliffhanger.
Plot twist, which,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
was interesting. So, right, so going into spoilers, what were you going to say about the Great Disaster?
Yeah, so the Great Disaster, as we know, happens pretty close to the start of the book. And then we have this incredible scene with Avar Kriss bringing in all of the other Jedi. And as mentioned, I love that they all have their different Jedi talents.
And they
being the
Song of the Force.
Right.
And how they each describe how they feel the Force. Right. So they each interpret the Force. They each view the Force in a different manner, which is very much like, you know, like some form of spiritual...
Yes.
Guidance. That's how, you know, like real spiritual guidance will work. You will view your own sort of different way of, well, just viewing it, I suppose. And they do the exact same thing here, where each and every one of them views the Force in a different manner.
So what I loved about this, I to be honest, I think this is one of the best, well-written parts of the book, and it was so powerful where the Jedi worked so incredibly well, all together and in harmony, and nobody was really competing with anyone else, even though Avar Kriss obviously brought them all in together. They were united as one, and this actually gave me tingles reading this bit.
Yeah,
you know,
same.
this was just like,
Chills
wow,
up my spine.
absolutely. It was so well written, and you were so invested and sitting on the edge of your seat, you know, and they did such an incredible job. And what I also liked is you sort of read that and you think, wow, that's amazing, they did it, but hey, we're only at the start of the book, and then of course we find out that yes, that happened, but behind the scenes there's another incredible disaster happening.
I think the main thing for me that sort of showed was it showed that united, the Jedi are very powerful.
Yes.
When they rely on the Force and its teachings and guidance, they are very they're very powerful once again, and they sort of when they work as a team and not as an opposition, they work wonderfully. So when they're peacekeepers and not warriors,
right,
would be the thing for me. They can achieve great heights that we've never really seen anywhere else. Because in most other sort of stories that have been told in canonical Star Wars, is they've always been very sort of, it's, you know, it's been a one or two or three people.
Yes.
And they've been powerful, right? They might have been, you know, very, very powerful what they've done. But once again, usually there was only like two or three people.
That's right.
So it's just like you got a few people and they, you know, they achieve something.
Right.
Oh, hey, that's cool. But it was never more than like a couple.
Yeah,
of Jedi.
exactly. That's
In this, it was the Jedi
all
Order.
Jedi. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You got the sense. This is an order of Jedi who are great and mighty and powerful, but also peaceful and calm and serene in how they deal with, with the Force and with the, you know, with the way of life that they practice. And so, and to me, that one sort of bit truly highlighted this is the height of the Jedi.
Absolutely.
Right? That was the one scene that made me go, right, they are all connected. They are all at their best. That was that one scene that sort of showed
you what
yes,
the Jedi should be.
Yes.
I like the little nod to Yoda. He was obviously part of this.
Yeah.
However, I also liked that then he wasn't, made to be the main character, and he really was just one of, you know, as you're saying, all of the Jedi being together, helping.
Right.
So that was pretty amazing.
I like that. Yeah.
So tell me your thoughts around the Nile.
Great characters. As we said earlier, excellent villains. Far, I would say that, far and above one of the most unique villains that we've seen in Star Wars thus far. They're very sort of cunning.
Ruthless.
I would say the Marchion Ro is cunning, I should say. But the actual order themselves, I suppose, are a lot more sort of random in their dealings, but utterly ruthless, as they say.
Yeah.
So they're feared across the galaxy, which we get descriptions of just because they're just so utterly brutal in what they do. They're just completely ferocious. They just dig in, they go, and just like, you know, there is no qualms on, should we do this? No, we'll just do this.
No
we'll
mercy at all.
We'll just murder these bunches of people.
That's
It's very full on.
It is very full on.
But it's great. And then Markion Ro, he sort of starts off as this timid little guy who you're like, yeah, okay, this is not. He's not gonna, you know, he's not gonna amount to anything. He's just a bit of a nothing character. But then at the end, he comes out as this massive playing force, and you're like, whoa, all right, who's this guy? And he comes and he's planned this whole sort of plan to take over the Nile, and he's got this deep history behind him, and he's like been plotting for generations or something, and he knows how to like get the Jedi or something, and you're like, what the hell? Who is this guy?
Again, like that little teaser in there, but you know what I love as much as the polar opposite of loving the Jedi for their purity and, you know, their immersion as a group, I equally loved Markion Ro and his plan within a plan, and, you know, he was like, you actually grow to think this is a really good character. He's a good villain. He's really unique as well, and being the Eye, I found that was really interesting.
Right. Well, I thought the way that the Nile were, like the Nile as an organisation, thought that's interesting. So you've got strikes at the bottom, then you've got storms, and then clouds. Or is it clouds then? I think it was clouds then storms, and then the tempest runners, and then you had the Eye of the Nile. So it was like strikes are like your infantrymen, your
it's like a chess game, isn't it?
Quite literally.
Your pawns. Your
infantry.
Exactly.
They're like the strikes. They're like your bottom of the barrel kind of thing. Clouds are the people who have teams of strikes, so they're sort of like the bosses of the strikes.
Right.
So they're like middle management kind of thing, and then and they're like your generals and whatnot. And then you have your storms, which are like they have teams of of clouds, right? And so they're like your top dogs, right?
Yeah.
They're like the top. And then you've got the Tempest Runners, and there's 3 of them, and they are the heads of the organisation. They're like the rulers of the organisation. And so we've got Cassiv, Lerna D, and Panita, I think it was.
That's right.
And then we've also got the Eye of the Nile, which is a separate thing, which is Markion Ro, and he is the one who provides the paths, which is another interesting thing that we've not seen before, because previously we've seen hyperspace workers just, here is a thing that allows us to transport from one place to another place. Simple as that. There's no... That's it. It's just as simple as, right, we're going from here to here. Point A to point B. And there's nothing really else there. This is saying, right, well, we've actually found paths through different hyperspace ways to jump straight into, jump straight into paths of other hyperspace lanes, or to jump straight into cities and stuff like that. Very, very powerful.
Yeah.
Because Markion Ro has a secret tool up his sleeve, which we sort of go, oh, what's all this about? Which is, what's her name?
The older lady.
Mary or Mari Santeca.
That's right.
Who is part of the clan of Santeca, who, once again, relating because of the way that the story is framed, we've also have she's like this ancient sort of elderly Santeca that's being kept alive by this weird sort of hospital machination thinger that Markion Ro has set up. And the current Santecas are Marlowe, I think it is, and Vel.
They're 2.
Velis or something like that. And them 2 are married, and they're like the current Santecas, and they're sort of like, whoa, what? Where is she? Couldn't be she. Couldn't be that she's still alive. And
the introduction of her is interesting. It's our first peek at, I think, that cunningness of Marchion Ro and the, I guess his evilness, if you like, is really shown in that point where the way that he treats her for his own gain, like, which I actually found a bit disturbing.
Yeah, to right. He's like, I could kill her right now.
Right.
And he's like, I really want to murder her right now. And he's...
a sociopath.
Right, like a proper one, like a genuine one. And it's sort of that...
Scary.
It's really only that chapter that you get the sense of okay, this guy is absolutely just nuts.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas in other chapters, he seems a lot more cunning.
Controlled.
Like he seems a lot more... everything's got a plan, except maybe like that last sort of bit in which you get a bit more of a whoa, what's happening here?
Yeah, that's right. I have to say that just going back to the introduction of the Nile was probably one of those parts of the book that it did take me a while to get my head around, because as you said, there's all these different layers of people, and once you do get into it, but there's a lot to take in terms of all the different parts of the Nile. And again, not all of them are as relevant as others. And I understand this is the first book and we need to be introduced, but again, it is quite challenging. But great. I love the Nile. I think it's a great part of the book. I think it's a good segue from the start of the book as well. So going from the amazingness of the Jedi into the Nile. Yeah. I think let's also talk about Chancellor...
Right, Lena So.
Lena So.
I think what's interesting here is that we get a republic that, once again, they're at their height, obviously, and she sort of emboldens that. So we don't really meet any senators. I think we get what's his name? Is it Nor who represents the Outer Rim and whatnot, and he's sort of just this other senator. But other than him, we don't really see any other politicians. So the main representation of the Republic that we get is Chancellor Lena So.
Right.
And she represents the Republic.
Yes.
And she sort of emboldens exactly what they're standing for, which is her tagline, and that sort of like is the key of the High Republic in general. And her tagline is, "We are all the Republic."
We're all the Republic. Which, is a very political line, which we would hear these days in politics and potentially eye roll. However, she really does live to that tagline.
Yeah. And as we can see when she monologues, she genuinely believes what she's talking.
Right.
Right.
And is so well respected amongst everybody.
Right. Because she so believes in it, people across the galaxy are starting to believe in it as well. People are buying into it and going, yeah, she's onto something. Yeah. We are all the Republic, right? That sort of stuff.
Yeah.
To the point where, she is like full on and starts, going on a speech about, like I think it's like at the end of the book, we're all the Republic and we're all united, this, blah, 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 blah. And then she isn't met with, okay. She's met with, yes, you are correct. And everybody completely agrees with her. And because everybody knows that this is a time when, yes, like this is the best that we've been. This is the best that it can be, and we can do better.
And also, it probably is that way from having such a strong leader.
Right,
and
yes.
a good leader. When we think about good old mate, Palpatine.
Right.
Not exactly the same,
right. Which is a representation of... And because, so sure, he was, obviously crook, but you have to remember that how do you let such a villain into, like the leader, like the ruling person?
Yes.
How do you let someone get there? And we see that the previous one before him was this dodgy, bloke who was getting, like bribes and we just he was, he was corrupt, right? And so we can see once again, which I think is a key point of this sort of era, is that the main thing of this era isn't so much this is when they're at their height, because they are.
Yeah.
It's more so here's how they fell, and I think at the very least that this is how the storytelling will go forward, because how I feel that they're going to go about it is rather than showing, right, here is the the best they've ever been, and then we're going to tell you like 20 stories, and we're just going to show you the best they've ever been. Instead, I think it's going to show you this is the best we've ever been, and this is how we gradually got to the place that we see them in the prequels over 200 years. So obviously, they're not going to show us 200 years because there would be quite a few characters dying for because of old age. But I think what they will do is they might show us the next 50 or 100 years, right? Something like that. Because not including the High Republic or anything like that, and anything surrounding that, the earliest sort of content that we've really got in Star Wars, that's not the High Republic or anything like that, is about 100 years before, or like 80 or 90 years before the Phantom Menace, and that's like sort of the earliest bit, and even by that point we can get a sense of things aren't quite the same.
Right.
So over 100 years, something must have changed that sort of led to this.
Because what's also really interesting and highlighted, I think, throughout the book is they're not prepared for this sort of disaster, for war, because they are peace-giving people. Like they just don't. They're not prepared. They don't have the conflicts that we know of, and so they have to rally together. And so I do wonder if this is going to, as you say, be the start of them heading down that track.
Right. Well, that's what I think it is, because I think that they've got 3 phases and all that. I feel like each phase is going to be like it might be advancing like 20 years or something like that, and we'll see the progression of these characters and how they age and evolve, and eventually maybe sort of fall a little bit. Like not like I don't think anything drastic's going to happen. I think it'll be a gradual change, and this is just an assumption, so I've no idea what they will do. Maybe they will just show us here's 20 stories in this current era, and that's it. And look, if they do that, that's fine. Like I'm not complaining, because the stories that we've gotten are pretty damn good thus far.
Absolutely.
But that's just my guess, because I feel like that could be a really interesting way to take the story of showing here's the Jedi at their best. Now let's show you as they get to their worst.
Yeah.
Right? Or they get to their downfall.
So another major part of the book is obviously the lead up to the Starlight Beacon,
right?
Which is an integral milestone for them to get to. What are your thoughts around that?
The Starlight Beacon. I think it's an interesting way that they've sort of pitched it. So the Starlight Beacon is a representation, once again, according to Chancellor Lena So, it is a representation of the Republic in general.
Yeah.
Right? Or of the High Republic era, I should say, in that it is a time where the Jedi are at their best. It's at a time when the Jedi are the Republic in general is at their best, and so because everyone's at their best, everyone's willing to work toward and create something that shows their greatness, which is the Starlight Beacon. The Starlight Beacon, they go on about and describe what it is. So it's basically like a way station that can serve as security, immigration, transportation, trading, medical, all of these different things. It's just like an all-in-one sort of station as it manages to sort of solve and do everything. You sort of go, whoa, this is a massive, this huge, massive thing. And to me, that's sort of a representation of the era in general. This station is that everyone's willing to work toward a greater future.
It just made me reflect on another major character is Jorah Marley. And so again, they build this person up, you really invest in her, and then bang, she's gone. And that, I didn't expect that, to be honest, because I was on board with Jorah. She's, this incredible person, but she's gone, and it's like, wow, where are they going with these characters? Like, as I mentioned, they've got now, it's a brand new series, so they can keep people on or just snuff people out, which I guess is the interesting thing about something new.
Like, she doesn't appear that much, all things considered.
No.
But what she does appear is you sort of go,
she's someone
it's an important character, and
she's
then
an important character.
she does, and her main sort of role is furthering other characters' arcs, I feel, which we'll touch on when we get into the next couple books. But I will just say real quick that her death sort of furthers the story of both a character in Into the Dark, which is another book, and a character in the High Republic comic series as well. Her death sort of impacts both of these characters, and now they both handle it very differently, and they've got different situations. Very obviously, one takes it a lot worse than the other. We can just say that, But that's sort of definitely to me at least, it's a showing that they're not used to death, which is a common theme across all of the High Republic stories that we've seen thus far, is that with the Jedi, and the Jedi specifically, they all experience sort of death for the first time. Like, they're all sort of just like, whoa, hang on, this person just died, and we've never had a person die for centuries. Right, like Jedi don't die. That's not or if they do, it's a very rare thing ever happens. Everybody goes, oh my god. But we're talking about like 20, 30 Jedi have just died within the span of like a month or something like that.
And then I do like the exploration as well, which I think they'll get into a bit more in terms of the Jedi and dealing with grief as well, which is in this book, and as you mentioned, does get touched on in some of the other books as well, because as we know, the Jedi aren't supposed to form those relationships and feelings. They need to be one as the Jedi. And so I do also wonder if again, is the start of moving down that
path. Which I think we can touch on more later in the other reviews when that's sort of a more prominent thing.
Absolutely.
Because here it's not really as important.
Not as important.
They say that Skier, which is one of the Trandoshan Jedi characters, they say that he at the very end he's sort of he's not taking the death too well. But once again, that's not really touched on very much until the High Republic comic series.
And I think it just highlights the fact that this is unique, this is new, that as you mentioned, they're not used to dealing with death. And so it's almost like this is the start of something, I think, for the Jedi.
I agree. I think that they're supposed to be in a time that is great, that is perfect, and there's nothing really that bad happening, and it's all sort of tra-la-la-la-la. And then something bad does happen, they'll go, and they sort of don't really know how to deal with it, and they're all sort of like, and they sort of freeze up a little bit and go, ooh, what should we, how do I deal with this? Like how do I deal with this terrible thing happening? And even though at the end they sort of feel like, oh, okay, don't worry, we've defeated the Nile. Yeah. We know that they haven't, and clearly it's going to, bite them in the bum later, and they're not really prepared for this, this new battle era, right? Or this new threat, because all of the as a character says early in the book, who was it? Admiral Kranara, who is like the head of the Republic Defense Coalition. Which is like their form of like a semi-half military, but it's it's very lackluster because there just hasn't been anything. And he says early on, he says something like, "Oh, the Mandalorians haven't bothered us recently, and there hasn't been a conflict with blah blah blah, and so long it hasn't been blah blah blah." So basically saying there hasn't been any conflict for ages.
That's right.
Right, and the conflicts have been small skirmishes on planets. Like that's not, and it doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
So when you reach that level of peace, having that peace shattered makes everybody go, "Whoa!"
Exactly.
And they sort of freak out a little bit, which I think once again, as you said, will further develop this sort of era, and it'll be very interesting to see where they go with all this.
I found another incredibly well written part of the book and really, kept me on the edge of my seat was when the Nile go to, kidnap that family. That was amazing, and again, just really highlights the brutality of the Nile. But then also, again, is this thing about Marchion Rowe that you're invested in this family. You want to know if they're going to survive, and you're sort of vying for them, and you think, well, what is it? There must be something about this family that's pretty important. But then, chillingly, done, right? And he just...
Marchion Rowe just kills him.
He kills that father with no emotion, and it was all just about...
And he goes, him? Oh, no,
he's
what do you mean? He didn't mean anything.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, that's... Yeah. Again, just really highlights the person that he is.
But I will say, I also think those segments were really well written. Like, the action in this book is very well done. You definitely get a feel of... you can almost hear like the Star Wars music in the background. So they're as they're like, there's like one, what's his name, Porter Engle. Who's a great character, and they call him the.
I could visualize him.
What's his name? It was like the Sword of Bardota or something like that. So something like that, and it was like he's this like 200-year-old Jedi or something like that, who's
the cook.
on like he's the cook, and he's on his like last sort of legs. But he like jumps up at one bit and just like, absolutely just goes nuts and like just, murders. Well, not, but he just like kills all these like Nile marauders, and you're just like, whoa, this is cool. You're just like, really cool. This is awesome. The space battles are really well written. You get a sense of them going as they're like battling along with each other, and you're like, yep, this is cool. This is I like this. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And you get a sense. Okay, this is this is cool sort of storytelling, which is at the end of the book when that space battle sort of happens, and even still, it isn't a traditional space battle. There's a lot of interesting things going on with Marchion Rowe as he has this ultimate plan as he enacts it, and you sort of go, oh my god. But once again, still great sort of storytelling.
Definitely. And then by the end of the book, if I now reflect on the entire book, I think it does take you on this massive journey. And you're totally invested, and again, I love the cliffhangers and the twists and turns, and I'm excited to keep reading and to know what's going to happen.
I agree, because thus far, all of the which you wouldn't really know too much about, but all of the extended sort of content that's come out, which we will read over time, that has come out and talked about these different characters and sort of books and stuff about the stories, is they've all sort of been very they've been about certain characters. So there was like a novel titled Tarkin. There was a novel titled Phasma. There was a novel titled blah 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 blah. And guess what those novels are about? They're about Tarkin, and they're about and they just tell these like small
one-dimensional sort of
stories. Not one-dimensional. They're interesting stories, but they just sort of talk about one character and their personality, which is very interesting, and it greatly develops the character as a character. But that's the whole thing. It's just that character, and it's a very small scale story where not much happens in the grand scheme of things. Maybe there's a battle or two. Like Master and Apprentice, they go on like a short, it's like an expedition off to a planet that it develops those characters and furthers their likability and whatnot, and it's an interesting story, but it doesn't mean anything in the long run. It's a very small scale story, and that's been the common trend across almost all of the comics and novels and everything. That's, even if they're really good, they've still been because they're surrounded by films that have already established the story.
We know the ending.
Exactly. Yeah. So they can't go and say, and then he dies.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he can't. We saw him in that film 20 years later.
Yeah.
Whereas
with this novel, we're set up now. We don't know what's going to happen.
And it's
Anything
large.
Could happen.
It's large scale. Like millions of people die. And they can do that because we're not in this point of time where we're surrounded by films. The next film that impacts something is 200 years later. It means nothing to what's happening now, other than, I guess, we can't have a coup, but it's like, that means nothing, right? So I guess my point is that it's just really interesting to have a large-scale story, a grand story that stretches over this huge span of time, and it tells this grand story, and we can do that, and it impacts the storytelling, and I really like that. I think that's really awesome that we can do something like that.
Yeah, I agree. No, look, it's good. I mean, I think we could probably leave it there because I think we've given a good review. Overall, we're both invested. We're ready to keep going. It's interesting. It's a great way, to reflect back on 200 years later. And so our next review, Jack, is going to be about the next book, which is really more young adult, would we say?
I think so. Yeah, I think the next one is Into the Dark. I'm not. Well, I'll have to double check it. Obviously, just the next one, I guess. We'll watch the next one. But I believe it is Into the Dark, which continues the High Republic story, because we will continue the High Republic stories as they come out and keep releasing. So we will definitely cover the next couple
up to 200 years until we hit the
stories. Right. But we will cover the next couple High Republic stories, so you can expect those to develop and come out.
Yeah.
But anyways, other than that, I think
we'll leave it there.
We're pretty good. So thank you for listening, everybody. This has been the Porg Diaries, a chronological review of Star Wars canon content. I've been Jack.
And Simone.
And tune in next time. Make sure to subscribe, comment, like, or whatever, share whatever platform you're on. And thank you for listening. And tune in next time.
See you later.